Amazing twist. Mother's piano performance exposes hidden truth, transforming son's life forever. Luke sat at the back of the church, shadows cast by flickering candles dancing across his worried face. The warmth of community pulsed around him, but he felt like an outsider. Today would be different. Today his mother, Evelyn, would step away from the familiar notes of the hymns she often played and reveal a hidden part of herself. He clenched his fists, fearing the potential repercussions if she failed. But there was another layer to his anxiety, a fear that something profound could shift in his orderly world. As her fingers brushed the keys, the church filled with an original composition that made the air thrum with emotion. Luke's heart tightened. This was no simple melody. It was raw, unfiltered, echoing the depth of unspoken sorrow that had clung to their family ever since his father's death. The notes wrapped around him like a cold embrace, each one pulling him deeper into an abyss of unfulfilled dreams and bitter obligations. While Evelyn evoked memories of past elegance, Luke wrestled with the weight of his own choices. Every missed opportunity, every rejection that made him feel invisible in a world that had little place for ambitions like his. Suddenly the music reached a crescendo, a heartbreaking revelation through art. The audience sat enraptured, unaware of the internal chaos brewing inside their architect. Luke had sacrificed everything for this life, from his ambitions to establish his architectural firm to his creative voice, now silenced under the daily routine of caregiving. Each key struck by his mother revealed a stark contrast between her longing for artistic expression and the prison of duties he couldn't escape. The haunting beauty of her performance resonated with a truth he had buried all too long. How many sacrifices could one heart endure before it shattered? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the last notes faded into the hushed silence, applause erupted. Yet Luke remained paralyzed, lost in a world colliding with the past. An old family friend approached him after the performance, a misty-eyed expression unearthing resurrected memories buried and long forgotten. Evelyn's composition had reverberated through the crowd, and her talent was finally recognized. But with it came the specter of family secrets, long veiled in shame. A mysterious donation arrived, bearing an ancient ledger tied to their father's legacy. It spoke of dreams abandoned, dreams he could still chase, but burdened by the knowledge it might tear their fragile existence apart. Luke's mind raced with the possibilities intertwined with pain. Could he delve into this legacy while remaining the loyal son? Would reclaiming his father's forgotten ambitions mean forsaking his mother? How could he carve out the life he yearned for without abandoning the person who shaped his every day? It was agonizing, knowing some doors could only be opened at great cost. He stood on the precipice of change. A single decision could lead to freedom or lose him everything he held dear. As he stared into the dim expanse of the church, feeling the expectations pressing down on his shoulders, he sensed that he was in the grip of a tide far stronger than himself. Unresolved questions hung in the air, a fog of uncertainty that swallowed him whole. Time slipped by, drawing him closer to a threshold he both feared and craved. What revelations awaited him, and at what price? Only the echoes of his mother's haunting melody lingered, whispering of hope and despair in equal measure, urging him to confront a future he could only now begin to imagine. Caught up in a whirlwind of emotions, Luke stepped outside the church, the intoxicating scent of rain-soaked earth mingling with the scent of candle wax still lingering in the air. The night was heavy, as if the weight of prior generations pressed down upon him, and he could hear the distant rumble of thunder echoing his tumultuous thoughts. He wanted to flee, to turn his back on the past that had been laid bare, but an invisible tether bound him to the obligation of loyalty, making his skin crawl. The ledger, that cryptic document tied to his father's unfulfilled dreams, loomed large in his mind. Holding the weight of its pages felt like holding a key to a room long sealed shut, one that harbored aspirations dampened by time and worry. "Why did you have to hide this?" he whispered to himself, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. What kind of man would turn his back on the future, trapping his family in a cycle of regret? Yet, as Clara, the family friend, reached out to console him, the deep-seated anger morphed into aching sympathy. She had witnessed his father's struggles, just as he had. She understood the consequences of chasing dreams in a world that seemed intent on stifling them. "What are you going to do with it?" Clara asked, her voice laced with concern. The question ignited the embers of ambition smoldering within him. Luke hesitated. Could he even entertain the thought of pursuing his father's legacy? Perhaps even reviving the architectural firm his father had once envisioned? The urge to reclaim what had been lost swirled within him, a seductive call that resonated with the melody lingering in his heart. But at what cost? "Things have gotten complicated," he replied, his voice low. "I can't abandon Mom now, not after everything." "Sometimes the hardest choices lead to growth," she urged, a gentle reminder that buried dreams could still bloom with courage and resilience. "You owe it to yourself to see what this means." "See what it means?" he echoed, disbelief etched across his face. "It's more than just a ledger. It's a lifetime of expectations. I could risk everything and lose her in the process." Luke turned away, the storm within him reflecting the one brewing in the distance. The thunder rolled again, an ominous reminder of the tempest waiting to unfold. That night, he couldn't sleep. Images of collapsing buildings, unchecked ambitions and faded hopes haunted him. Still, a voice in the back of his mind asked, but what if he could balance both? What if he could give his mother the encouragement to pursue her dreams while carving out his own path? In the silence of his room, with only the lighting flashes illuminating the darkness, Luke grabbed a notebook and started sketching. With each stroke of his pencil, ideas flowed, initial designs inspired by his father's old dreams fused with newer visions he longed to realize. It felt rebellious yet liberating, a silent act of defiance against the chains of obligation. Would his mother share in this journey, or would it push her further into her past? As dawn crept in, the first rays of light pierced through the brooding clouds outside. Luke stood before the documents, now scattered across his desk, a tapestry woven from anxiety, potential, and perhaps hope. One decision remained like a tightrope before him, dangerously uncertain. He recognized that he had arrived at a moment steeped in choice, the past conjoining with the future. The realization settled over him like a shroud. He needed to confront both his own longing and the delicate fabric of family ties. With his heart racing, he decided it was time to turn the page and face the unresolved echoes of his inheritance. The melody of his mother's piano resonated in his chest, now intertwined with the whispers of ambition, rousing his dormant spirit. But the thunder outside still rumbled ominously, a reminder that pushing forward could unearth not only dreams, but also buried secrets. As he braced himself for what lay ahead, a single thought haunted him. The time had come to face whatever truths emerged from the shadows. The morning light spilled into the room like liquid gold, stark and vibrant against the shadows of the previous night. Luke stood motionless, gazing at the chaotic scatter of sketches and familial documents that cluttered his desk. Each line he had drawn symbolized a fragment of hope, a desire to breathe life into his father's dreams while carving his own identity. He inhaled deeply, exhaling the lingering tension as if banishing the doubts that clung to him. Determined, he wanted to approach his mother. Re-evaluating their relationship was daunting, but the ledger held shadows that urged him towards disclosure. Luke's hand trembled slightly as he picked a pencil from the clutter, tracing the outline of a building design that he believed could catalyze a revival, not only of his father's firm, but also of their family's spirit. Today wasn't merely about the architectural sketches, it was about confrontation and connection. He needed to both share and validate his burgeoning desire to pursue a dream that resided side by side with his mother's aspirations. Resolving to break the cycle of silence, he made his way down the narrow hallway, the sound of his footsteps muffled by the carpet beneath him. His mother sat at the piano, her fingers dancing across the keys like memories resurfacing from deep within. The notes cascaded through the home, creating a harmonious backdrop to his turbulent thoughts. As he approached, he realized that her music symbolized not only a comfort zone, but a wellspring of emotional complexity. "Mom," he began, hesitating at the threshold of vulnerability, "can we talk about Dad's plans? And maybe what I hope to do too?" She paused, her fingers halting mid-song, eyes narrowing slightly as though weighing the gravity of his words. "I know this is difficult, Luke. Your father's dreams. They were so important to him." "I want to honor them," he replied, urgency underlying his tone. "I want to revive the firm, but I can't do it alone, not without having you in the picture. I need to understand what you've always wanted, and how I can incorporate it into what I'm aiming for." Tension hung thick in the air, and the room felt charged as if waiting for a lightning strike. "Do you really think you could take on that burden?" It wasn't just ambition that crushed his dreams. It was the weight of responsibility, of failures lurking at every corner. Her voice trembled slightly, and he caught a glimpse of fear behind her resolute facade. "What if you chase something that leads to more heartache? Can you bear that risk?" Luke inhaled deeply, sensing that he was teetering on the edge of discovery, both personal and familial. "I have to try, Mom. Not only for me, but for us. Together. It doesn't have to be a choice between honoring Dad and realizing your dreams." As silence enveloped them, he started to sketch new lines on the paper, integrating her influences, her artistic flair, and the lessons learned from their past. Would their combined talents create something unfathomably beautiful? Resolved yet anxious, Luke felt a surge of conviction. What if their collaboration could redefine their legacy? He reached out tentatively. "Will you help me?" The air shifted, heavy with unspoken emotions. Her eyes glistened as they met his, conveying a mix of hope and trepidation. "I want to support you, but the past has a way of haunting us. Maybe facing it together will allow us to find the light," he replied, an inkling of optimism sparking within him. At that moment, he sensed a possibility, a chance to transform not just his path, but to forge a new connection built on shared dreams. But as the sun began to dip low, casting shadows long and dark, the inevitable weight of their history loomed. What secrets lay ahead, quietly waiting to be uncovered in the recesses of their lives? And could their budding partnership withstand the storm of revelations that seemed to linger on the horizon? The gentle clinking of piano keys faded into the background as Luke's heart raced, consumed by a blend of anticipation and fear. He sensed a pivotal moment had arrived, not just for him and his mother, but for their lineage, grappling with both dreams and regrets. The lingering harmony that enveloped them felt fragile, a sharp contrast to the tension building within him. "Let's sketch out a plan," he suggested, sensing the urgency in the air. "I have ideas that may surprise you, involving both our strengths." Her brows furrowed, reflecting a mix of doubt and curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to create a gallery space that showcases local artists, marrying your music with architecture. This can symbolize our journey, a way to honor Dad while forging our own identity." Each word felt like an initiation, stripping away layers of hesitation and awakening the dormant energy within him. "I've always dreamed of a place where art could speak to the community, but—" Her voice trailed off, betraying her fear of building something new following their shared history. "But what if we took that risk together?" The more he spoke, the more an invisible thread between them seemed to strengthen, binding not just aspirations, but their shared vulnerabilities. "You play, I design. Together, we create." "I don't know, Luke." Her voice quivered slightly, battling against years of holding back. "What if our plans crumble? What if—" "What if they don't?" Luke interjected, looking into her eyes. "What if we uncover layers of ourselves we've long kept hidden? Your music, my designs. Imagine the impact we could have not only on ourselves but on others." The fire in his voice ignited something in her, a flicker of hope intertwined with fear. He watched as she battled with the specter of doubt. "But what if my past failures echo in this endeavor? Mom, every architect faces the risk of failure before discovering beauty. You taught me that through your music. It embraces both triumph and struggle. If we lean into that tension together, perhaps we can transcend it. She considered his words, the silence swelling with possibilities. He could see the walls she had constructed slowly beginning to crack, revealing a glimpse of the artist she once aspired to be. I've always felt that music was my voice, but I let the fear of performance silence me. I guess I never thought my dreams were worth pursuing again, she admitted, her vulnerability startling him. That makes us both, he replied, feeling his own fears echoed. It's time to lift those weights off our shoulders and rediscover what we were meant to create. As their eyes locked for what felt like hours, the room began to pulse with energy. Luke dug through his sketches, refusing to let this moment slip away. Let's brainstorm ideas. We could have a grand opening that highlights a blend of your music and architecture. It could be our statement, a rebirth of sorts. Each suggestion ignited a different spark within her, the crescendo of possibility drawing them closer. The uncertainty that had loomed over their dialogue slowly morphed into tangible excitement, and for the first time, Luke felt the intangible burdens of the past begin to lift. As their discussion transitioned from possibility to practicality, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that danced across the walls, hints of the challenges that lay ahead, yet also a promise of growth. And then, with a sudden steely resolve, Luke stood tall. Let's do this, or at least take the first step. Show the world our comeback. Her smile, tentative yet bright, grounded him. It was a glimmer of the future they could build together, but the deeper they ventured into this new world they were crafting, the clearer it became that the path wouldn't be easy. Could their renewed partnership withstand the family legacy's weight? Would they unearth truths meant to be hidden? As they rose, ready to embark on their journey, Luke felt a chilling whisper in the back of his mind, a reminder that shadows could reveal both brilliance and darkness. What awaited them beneath the surface of their newfound resolve? The air felt different as Luke knelt beside his sketches, a palpable mix of eagerness and anxiety thrumming within him. Each pencil line represented a breath of life he and his mother would imbue into their project, a gallery that would echo with their shared triumphs and poignant memories. Yet, amid this hopeful vision, doubts crept in like shadows threatening to engulf them. "How do we start?" she asked, exhaling as if the weight of the world sat on her chest. He admired her honesty, the rawness ripping through her fears like a sharp knife. The moment felt sacred, crystallizing in time. "Let's break it down," Luke suggested, his mind racing with ideas. "We can research local artists, set up a few meetings. Music sequences can drive the architectural designs." Each word he uttered was a building block, a way to anchor their fragile dreams. She nodded, encouraging him as though he were the spark she needed to reignite her own flame. Yet Luke felt his heart whirl like a storm, grappling with a fear that gnawed at the edges of his clarity. But what if they refuse to collaborate? What if our visions clash? The unspoken questions hung heavy in the air. "Then we adjust," he replied, firmness creeping into his tone. "We adapt like layers in music, each note, each chord slightly shifting until it forms a harmony." He knew the risk of failure lingered, an uninvited guest shadowing every plan. Yet every flicker of doubt in his mind was countered by the fervor of newfound purpose. Time passed swiftly, and they spent hours developing schedules, searching through portfolios of local artists. The contours of their gallery morphed into clearer visions. They imagined bustling openings with laughter, echoing through spaces filled with light. But even as they saturated themselves in this process, he couldn't shake the feeling that something larger loomed, an undercurrent that dared him to confront deeper shadows. His own. He withdrew into his thoughts. What if this venture uncovered more than just artistic collaboration? What if it meant confronting the ghosts of his father's legacy, unraveling the layers of grief and guilt each of them held so tightly? "Luke?" His mother's voice startled him from his reverie. She had peered closely at a section of his sketches. "Did you draw this with me in mind?" He looked at her, then down at the lines and curves forming the abstract interpretation of what their collaborative space could become. "In a way, yes," he replied, "but equally, it's about confronting who we used to be." The truth felt more precarious, spoken aloud. Instead of flinching, she met his gaze with an intensity that stirred something within him. "Confronting the why," she breathed, her fingers grazing the paper as though tracing the fractures of their family. This exploration stirred a realization. Courage hidden beneath layers of hesitance. Both of them had drifted through their lives too long, shackled by their past. Their intertwined paths needed more than collaboration. They craved authenticity. Luke didn't want a mere gallery. He desired a sanctuary of honesty. What if we invited artists to share their own stories? Not just a showcase, but a platform for unveiling the truth behind their work, she proposed, her voice rising with excitement. The thought ignited fireworks in his mind. Yes, their vulnerabilities could offer insights into our own journeys. Yet even as they provided new definitions to their project, Luke sensed the struggle ahead. How could he set aside the burden of fear that could stifle this rebirth? Just then a harsh ring sliced through the silence. His phone buzzed on the table. The reminder of the business meeting tomorrow loomed like a storm cloud. He had hesitated to inform her about it, the weight of their decisions resting heavily upon his shoulders. "Who is it?" she inquired, tilting her head curiously. He hesitated again, uncertainty knifing through him. 6 months ago, he had shied away from professional commitments, but here he was preparing to dive into the artistic world, one that involved risk and self-exposure. It's a potential investor," Luke finally admitted, his heart racing anew. The thought of negotiating the gallery's future struck a fearful chord. Was he prepared for that level of vulnerability and accountability? "Just remember," she said softly, "openness creates connection." Luke felt a shiver, knowing she spoke not just of their gallery but of the unspoken truths that lay buried within both of them. What awaited him in this meeting? Perhaps revelation, perhaps conflict. The air crackled with anxiety, but he sensed this was their moment to leap together. Yet as he looked into his mother's eyes, he faced an unsettling truth. What if stepping into that world meant unearthing buried deceptions about their father that threatened to rupture their fragile trust? What if the very foundation of their endeavor laid on secrets he was yet to confront? This newfound journey toward truth was about to unveil more than just a gallery. It would challenge the very nature of their relationship. The day might hold the answers they both sought, but would the shadows of their past threaten their partnership? As dawn spilled its golden light across the room, Luke's restless mind stayed cloaked in shadows of doubt. The nervous flutter of anticipation from the night before now pulsed with the weight of what lay ahead. The bustling world outside was unaware. For him, today was both a chance of rebirth and an invitation to confront hidden demons. He stood before the mirror, his reflection a kaleidoscope of emotions. Each crease of his brow echoed uncertainty, yet behind the worry hid a steely resolve. He could either wallow in fear or seize the moment to define his path. The choice felt monumental, a subtle fork in the road that would send ripples through his life. "Just be authentic," he murmured, recalling his mother's earnest encouragement. They had already decided to showcase not just art, but stories, real vulnerabilities behind the canvas. But as he prepared for the meeting, the gravity of his past yanked at him, deeply reminding him of the secrets forged from heartache and guilt. The thought of his father's legacy loomed like an ever-present specter. Who would he be if that legacy was left unresolved? Would he finally gain closure, or would it deepen the rift in their family history? Luke's heart turned heavy as he envisioned the potential investor, as not just a business contact but as a potential conduit for truth, an opportunity to reconcile the unresolved conflicts that tightened his chest. He arrived at the coffee shop where the meeting was set. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the rhythmic hum of conversations. Each sound oscillated in his mind, creating a dissonance that echoed his internal conflict. He spotted the investor, a neat man in a tailored suit, looking more like a banker than an artist's patron. "Luke," the man called, flashing a veneer of charm which only slightly masked the structured personality beneath. They shook hands, and Luke's pulse quickened. As they settled down and exchanged pleasantries, desperation swirled within him. The pressure to perform well, to communicate his vision clearly, battled against his growing anxiety. "Tell me more about your gallery concept," the investor prompted, a deliberate interest in his tone. Here was the moment. Luke took a deep breath, grounding himself. "It's about connection," he began, carefully selecting his words. "We want our viewers to understand the hearts behind the art, the stories that shaped them. Each artist will share their journey. It's not just about showcasing work, it's about unveiling truths." As he spoke, he felt the shadows recede slightly. His ideas flowed, filled with passion and authenticity. He saw the investor nodding thoughtfully, indicating understanding instead of judgment. A sense of relief rushed through him, momentarily dispelling the weight of expectation. But just as he began to entertain thoughts of potential success, the investor's gaze shifted. "What about your own story? What drives this vision?" Caught off guard, Luke faltered. His instincts urged him to shield his vulnerabilities. Yet as he peered into the man's eyes, the same uncertainty flickered back at him. They were standing on the edge of a precipice. "My relationship with art comes from a painful legacy," he found himself admitting, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. "It's about coming to terms with my father, not just about who he was, but how his choices have affected my journey." The silence hung heavily between them. Luke's heart raced. Had he made a grave error exposing himself too soon? Yet the investor leaned closer, the human connection deepening with every word shared. "Vulnerability amplifies honesty," the investor said, his response a surprising warmth. "It's compelling, Luke. Everyone carries a history weighing them down. Your willingness to confront yours makes your project significantly more relatable." In that moment, Luke felt a shift. Instead of the meeting spiraling into a discourse of numbers, it evolved into a dialogue about artistic integrity, the resilience of personal stories, and the healing power of art itself. As they wrapped up, the investor's demeanor shifted again, his expression contemplative and invigorated. "This is not just a gallery, is it? It's a sanctuary for truth." "Yes," Luke replied, a newfound certainty resonating within him. But as the conversation drew to a close, an unfamiliar discord pierced through the connection they had built. He could feel the echoes of untold truths surfacing, tempting him to confront his father's decisions directly. That trauma was still present, and secrets threatened to resurface. What if the investor, in seeking more about Luke's story, unearthed something darker than either of them anticipated? The fading light outside cast long shadows as Luke left the coffee shop, the conversation echoing in his mind. He had felt a connection, but he also sensed the thin, precarious line between truth and manipulation. The day had revealed more than he ever expected. This was a turning point. But could he harness his courage to face the twists of his own narrative? With each step he took homeward, he felt the pressure mount. A confrontation with honesty awaited him. Would he share his father's secret that had hung like a damp fog over their lives, or would he cling to the past, letting fear dictate his destiny? The horizon shimmered, but Luke remained on the edge of uncertainty. His journey into unveiling truth had begun, but the cliff edge remained dangerously close. The following day, the sun beamed with a false promise of serenity. Luke awoke with a sense of urgency, the weight of the investor's words pressing heavily against his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that clarity was hiding just out of reach. Each moment spent in reflection pushed him closer to the precipice of revelation or perhaps disaster. He poured himself a cup of coffee, the brewing aroma thickening the atmosphere in his small kitchen. As steam curled into the air, memories of his father flooded back, fierce and unyielding. Moments of harsh words, moments of silence that spoke volumes. His father's legacy was more than just a shadow. It was a hefty anchor tied to his sense of self. Luke desperately sought to unravel it, to understand the man his father had been, and in doing so, define who he himself could become. He thought back to the gallery concept, a sanctuary for truth. Could he craft a narrative that captured both their stories, his father's and his own? Would the brushstrokes of their shared history blend cohesively or remain starkly contrasting? The thought sparked something deep within him. The stories behind art had the power to evoke empathy and provoke thought, yet the art of connecting those stories was uncharted territory for him. After a few hours of contemplation, he decided to visit the old studio where his father had spent countless nights creating. The space felt like a shrine, cluttered with remnants of abstract forms and errant paint splatters that captured the spirit of his father, a man cloaked in mystery and repressed emotion. As he stepped inside, the silence wrapped around him like a familiar quilt, whispering tales of passions undiscussed. The grand piano in the corner caught his attention. It stood regal yet weary, a relic of his mother's own brilliance. She had played before audiences with grace, her fingers effortlessly dancing across the keys, evoking unimaginable depths of emotion. The thought of her led him down another path. She was a part of this story as well. Could it be that her music held secrets to the unsaid truths that haunted him? With a pang of nostalgia paired with uncertainty, Luke approached the piano. His fingers brushed the keys lightly, and suddenly a note rang out, warm and inviting, yet filled with a somber undertone. Each subsequent note echoed his thoughts, playing out a melody of vulnerability that had been tucked away for too long. He played a simple piece reminiscent of his childhood, letting each note release shards of emotions swirling within him. The music pulled the fabric of his memories tighter. What if he invited his mother to share her insights through music, the sounds of her past melding with his quest for understanding? The concept swirled in his mind, blending with the idea of the gallery. Could it transform from merely a showcase of art into an immersive experience of sound and story that challenged the notion of identity itself? Yet even as the melody enveloped him with possibilities, doubt flickered. What if his mother resented revisiting the past? What if they unearthed truths that were better left buried? Pushing through the fear, he resolved to talk to her, to broach the subject with candor. The tension of anticipation weighed down on him, a reminder of the complexity that lay ahead. Luke envisioned their conversation, a carefully strategized exchange of words, intimate yet fraught with potential landmines. But in risking openness, he might gain clarity, forging a new path that intertwined art, music, and familial truths. As he left the studio, feeling the stirring of potential in every stride, a new understanding solidified within him. The act of sharing through art and vulnerability could lead to healing, not just for him, but for those around him. Though scared, he would take the step forward. But as he approached his phone to call his mother, an unsettling thought crept in. Was he ready for her reaction? Would their past bind them or liberate them? In that moment of decision, the weight of the unknown loomed larger than before. The horizon had expanded. Would he now find the courage to embrace the intertwining stories that could redefine his legacy? Luke took a deep breath, staring at his phone as if it were a portal into a different era of his life, one shaped by melodies and miscommunications that had formed the foundation of his family's rhythm. The urgency inside him fluctuated, rising and falling like tides, reacting to the moon's gravitational pull. What would it mean for her to step into this realm of vulnerability together? As he paced the hardwood floors, the sunlight streaming through the kitchen window became blindingly bright, illuminating the dust particles that danced in the air like the memories swimming in his mind. He envisioned her expressions, each revealing layer peeling back like a fragile leaf, a cautious combination of hope and apprehension etched across her face. Luke could recall the way his mother's lips curled when she played, the joy embedded in the humor of a playful note, the sorrow hanging heavy when she let the notes linger too long. This duality was not merely her artistic language, it was their language, the unspoken symphony binding them. Resolute, he dialed her number, forcing himself to focus on the rhythm of his breath as the ringing echoed in his ear. Each sound amplified the anxiety fluttering within him, insistent and demanding a response. The first ring ticked away at his resolve, and by the second he mentally outlined his intentions, searching for an entry point that wouldn't shatter the intricate balance they had maintained for so long. "Hello?" Her voice hit like a tantalizing note. It was cautious, yet warm. An easy recall of warmth that sparked reactions in his heart he thought were beyond his control. "Mom, it's me," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady, each syllable tinged with both excitement and dread. "I've been thinking, Zell, about the studio, about Dad, and, well, everything, really." There was silence on the other end. He could feel the weight of her anticipation, the instinct to protect her vulnerability kicking in. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" she finally asked, her tone wary yet inquisitive. "I think it's time for us to talk about our stories. I want to combine art and music and explore our past together. I want to invite you to play, to share, to uncover what we've hidden." A pause lingered, tension crackling with the force of unspoken history. "And you think that'll help?" Her voice wavered ever so slightly, coated with the thick film of doubt and memories she might not have been ready to confront. "Yes, I believe it will. We shared so much through your music, Mom. It could be the key to understanding everything we've buried." With some hesitation, she finally agreed to meet him at the studio that weekend. The call ended, but not the emotional turbulence. Relief washed over him, yet it was accompanied by a torrent of fears about what they might unearth together. Over the next few days, he meticulously planned his approach. From structuring the experience of the art exhibit to identifying emotional touchpoints in their past, the excitement, blended with the anxiety of potential unease, generated more than a few restless nights. He was on the verge of breaking through to something transformative, both personally and professionally. As Saturday approached, he crafted a draft for his vision statement, a narrative connecting their artistry, an invocation of their intertwined legacies. Each word felt like an act of faith, believing that the synthesis of their talents could shed light on their hidden truths. The atmosphere in the studio shifted on the day of their meeting. Dust motes drifted lazily, and the familiar scent of paint mingled with the tang of wood and thyme. It felt like standing at a precipice, one where the world beneath was murky, but the air above was clear and promising. But as the clock ticked on and she walked through the door, an unexpected doubt clawed at his resolve. What if the very act of unveiling the past splintered their fragile bond? The weight of hidden truths loomed larger than ever. "Let's begin," he said, his heart racing. He glanced at the piano as though it were a living entity that bore witness to their lives, ready to guide them towards an inevitable reckoning. The stage was set. Would they confront their legacy, or would the depths of their past be too painful to face? Would the melody of their reunion transform the rhythm of their lives forever, or would each note unravel in silence? As they began to play, Luke wondered, could the truths hidden in music spark a revolution of self-understanding, or would the awakening lead to more ghosts stirring from the shadows? As the first chords emerged from the piano, they reverberated through the studio like a call to arms. Luke felt both exhilarated and terrified as he watched his mother sink into the familiar embrace of the instrument. Each strike of the keys ignited long-buried memories, moments of laughter, the gentle sound of her singing, the bittersweet silence that followed arguments. He anticipated their magic this time would transcend far beyond mere nostalgia. Yet, as she played, the initial beauty of the notes morphed into echoes of something deeper. It was as if each keystroke was a reminder, a prod to confront everything they had withheld, the agony and the love that lingered just below the surface. Would they finally sift through the layers of melody and discover their truths? The question gripped him like a vice. "Play something from before," he murmured, his voice shaky but insistent. Her fingers hesitated, the music faltering for a moment as she considered his request. "You mean, yes, the pieces you wrote for Dad, not just the joyful ones, the ones that felt heavier." His heart raced as he clung to the hope that revealing these fragments would help unify the chasms in their relationship. This music was their history, an unfiltered conversation begging to be heard. With a deep breath she resumed, the melody now significantly darker, steeped in sorrow, yet simultaneously rich with hope. Each note painted scenes in the air, emotionally woven tapestries of their past that could not remain ignored any longer. Luke closed his eyes, allowing the weight of her performance to wash over him. He felt vulnerable, yet oddly empowered. However, as the song cascaded into an aching crescendo, he noticed something, the tears pooling in his mother's eyes. It struck him, a pang of anguish mingled with empathy. The pain she bore was not merely for their shared loss. It was a lifetime of concealed grief. memories strangled into silence by a fear of reliving the hurt. When the last note faded, silence engulfed the room. The once vibrant air had grown heavy with unspoken truths, daring them both to confront the uncharted waters of vulnerability. Luke's heart raced as he turned to face her. "Mom, this isn't just about the music. It's about the language we haven't spoken for so long." She met his gaze, her expression a mixture of sorrow and relief. "What if those ghosts aren't ready to emerge? What if they haunt us instead?" "Then we confront them together," he asserted, feeling a surge of determination. "We owe it to ourselves and to Dad." A flicker of recognition crossed her face, indicating she understood the gravity of the moment. They were at a threshold, teetering between an old familiar comfort and a precarious new reality that promised unexpected revelations. In that instant, Luke felt something inside him shift. The foundation upon which he had built his life needed re-examination, priorities reassessed. Was he truly ready to pull back the curtain of their carefully maintained facade? It went beyond the music. This was about their very identities. She nodded slowly, but the urge to retreat still glimmered in her eyes. "Maybe it's time," she whispered, though her voice wavered. With this tentative acceptance, Luke's urge to peel back layers thickened. Beneath all the sorrow, were there glimmers of strength they could reclaim together? Could vulnerability knit together the tattered fabric of their lives, or would the threads unravel even further? The stakes were high, and as they began anew, fielding questions and confronting memories, Luke understood that every chord struck could be a catalyst for either connection or rupture. Accepting this duality, he took a decisive step forward, no longer satisfied by mere whispers of the past. But even as they embarked on this new journey of reckoning, shadows loomed just outside the studio walls, teasing him with remnants of the past and mounting uncertainties about what lay ahead. "Let's write our first piece together," he proposed, his voice infused with resolve. He wanted to channel their pain into art, a fresh melody showcasing buried emotions. As they sat side by side, the piano beckoned, but Luke sensed the pressure mounting. What if the act of creation unveiled deeper rivalries? Would this effort to reclaim their bond lead to freedom or drowning in sorrow? The keys awaited, heavy with expectation. The moment of truth was approaching, one that could reshape their lives forever. Where would this new path lead? What undiscovered truths would they find waiting in the depths of their shared histories? As the melody began to flow, Luke found himself simultaneously liberated and anchored by the chaos of emotions. He could feel the weight of secrets lifting, replaced by the shared rhythm of creation. A powerful force surged through the air. They were in tune for the first time, merging their aspirations into one harmonic voice. "Let's tell our story through sound," he suggested, eyes glinting with determination. His heart raced as he envisioned each note reflecting their struggles, triumphs, and ultimately healing. Coordinating their efforts, they explored melodies that represented hidden fears and fluttering hopes, an intricate tapestry that exposed the vulnerabilities they had long tucked away. Evelyn hesitated initially, but as the music unfolded, she released her fears like whispers carried away by the wind. Their repressed feelings burst forth, intertwining with the music like branches of a tree, each note revealing a piece of their collective journey. She played softly at first, then built on strength, her confidence growing with each struck key as Luke's sketches lay open in front of them, designs that echoed their shared narrative. "This is it," he acknowledged, as the notes turned more robust, capturing the gravity of their experiences. "The struggles, the laughter, the pain. We can create something that will resonate with others. This could be the embodiment of our truths." Evelyn nodded, her fingers dancing more liberally across the piano. A son and his mother sharing a call and response of dreams unfulfilled but now rising anew, she mused, as her melody twirled amongst Luke's architectural sketches, turning them from static images into living designs that explored the themes of rebirth and connection. But as the session progressed, an eerie silence tumbled inside Luke's thoughts. Memories of his father surfaced, looming like shadows. With his hands at the piano, he dared to delve into the very legacy that had kept them locked in conflict. What if we also explore Dad's dreams? The thought slipped from his lips, a delicate invitation draped in uncertainty. What if we include all of it? His mother's fingers faltered mid-phrase. The heavy silence hung in the air like a palpable weight, their intertwined melodies hovering just at the edge of acceptance. "Luke, do we really want to tread those waters?" "Maybe it's necessary," he replied, emboldened by the momentum of their collaboration. "We have a chance to reshape our narrative, one that's honest and charges into our past without fear." For a long moment, Evelyn contemplated, her eyes clouded with a mix of sadness and realization. Finally she whispered, "If we are to write our song, it must include his hopes, not to be anchored by them, but to steer our vessel forward." Taking a deep breath, she began to play again, this time with a haunting grace. The melody echoed the significance of a lost love, dreams cut short, and unmet aspirations that echoed across the expanse of their lives. Each note was a reflection of the myriad emotions they had buried. With renewed conviction, Luke pulled a stack of sketches into view, complementing the haunting melody with his designs. "Maybe we can create an atmosphere that mirrors the struggle and beauty of our journey, the highs and the lows, the architectural form embodying the emotional weight." As his pencil streamed across the page, he felt boundaries dissolving within himself. The lines flowed as his thoughts cleared, visions of their gallery transformed, becoming a sanctuary of transformation, an architectural expression of both their intertwined dreams and burdens. He sketched a space filled with light, an open area where art, music, and connection could flourish, responding to the very truth they were unveiling. "Together," he summed up, his voice strong and resonant. "The music, the art, the architecture, it's all part of the same story. This gallery can rise from our shared healing process, a testament to what we've endured but dared to confront." Evelyn finished her piece, the resolution echoing around them like a soft hug beneath the weight of emotional labor. As silence followed, Luke reached out to grasp her hand, squeezing it gently. "We can honor Dad's memory while carving out new dreams, weaving our narratives into something infinitely more beautiful." Tears welled in her eyes, illuminated by the first strand of light piercing through the studio window. They encapsulated the weight of a new beginning, one forged from a shared journey of vulnerability. The fear that had once pulled them apart now swung open a door to deeper connections. Luke observed the serene expression washing over his mother's face for a moment longer before they both realized they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. A surge of confidence washed over him. The decisions he had faced, torn between responsibility and ambition, had led him to this sharp point of clarity. He was not sacrificing his mother's dreams for his own. They were crafting a shared legacy. Instead of letting shadows loom over them, they now embraced the light slowly filtering in, illuminating the paths set before them. In that moment, Luke understood the profound shift, the acceptance, the recognition of their past, and the powerful will to create a new narrative from it. He had transformed from the dutiful son burdened by obligation into a catalyst for revitalization, a creator ready to dream anew. As they stood together, hand in hand, Luke's heart brimmed with the certainty of their next steps. They would honor their past, celebrate the present, and confidently confront whatever awaited them on this new odyssey. With the sun spilling into the room, he grasped his sketchpad, resolutely declaring, "Let's showcase the journey. It's time to create something extraordinary." Together, they began to write a new song, one filled with resilience, truth, and the unshakable bond of a mother and son ready to redefine their legacy. Now the journey continues, not just for Luke and Evelyn, but for you too. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is the moment to show your support for stories of personal overcoming.